Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. All right. Welcome in to this week's episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Today we have Daniel Rosenthal with us. Daniel is somebody I've interacted with a little bit very recently. Today is the first day I've actually ever gotten to speak with him. So it's really cool that he is on the show today. He is a great coach. He works with moms over 40. He's a weight loss coach, has an incredible following online. So he's somebody you can go make sure to go ahead and follow. I'll have him send his links. We're in the same one of the same mentorships, and so it's really cool to kind of get to connect with other people kind of in the same space. So I'll let Daniel introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Cool. First of all, Anthony, thank you so much for having me on. I really do appreciate the opportunity here. Cool. So I've been a trainer or coach for just over 6 years now. I started, I was living in downtown Toronto. I started working as a personal trainer. That was my full-time job until the beginning of the pandemic when, it severely limited how much personal training we could do for a while. Now, at the beginning of the pandemic, I had actually just shifted to working online. I think I had like 2 clients when everything started to lock down. So that's how I spent all the free time I suddenly found myself with for those next few months, and I built it up. So it's been 2.5 years now that I've been full-time online, helping mostly moms over 40 to lose weight and to take back control. My own personal story. So in my early 20s, late teens, I was not in very good shape at all. I never exercised. I never ate healthy food. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was like the opposite of healthy. So for me, the first thing that I did that allowed me to start the process of getting healthy was to quit smoking. And that took me a few attempts, but I finally managed it. And then I started playing with nutrition. I was able to start exercising. And I think like a lot of people who are on one extreme, we go way too far to the other extreme. So I was all about the low carb and zero sugar and never drinking and just doing and like all the HIIT workouts. Basically, I did and believed all of the things that I say not to do and not to believe on my Instagram page right now. And the reason I can speak so confidently about them just being complete BS is because I've gone through it. I've tried all of those extreme ways of doing things. None of them last. I mean, they work while you're doing them. There's no doubt that if you eliminate alcohol and sugar and carbs and fun of any kind, you are going to lose weight without trying, but it's not going to last very long. So I kind of like my weight, I never got back up to my heaviest, but it would kind of go up and down a bit throughout my 20s. And it was only when I found moderation, because I'm not a naturally moderate person. But I managed to find moderation. It's still an effort to be moderate, but it was through moderation and just being reasonable about things that allowed me to get that control back of my weight, of my health. And this is what I basically show people how to do on Instagram, and it's what I help my clients with.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think a lot of times, people find, trainers, coaches, even other trainers and coaches look at people who they kind of perceive as more successful as them and think like they don't struggle with these things, right?
But we struggle all the time, man, huh?
Exactly. And like you said, a lot of the things that you're teaching, a lot of things that I teach are things that I did in the past too, right? And so I think that's why. And I speak for myself here, and I'm sure you as well. But a lot of things we're so passionate about is because we've realized that there is a better way, right? There is a better way. And
absolutely.
You've you've obviously found success helping moms. I always find it really interesting. I've had a couple coaches on here in the past few weeks that they also specifically work with moms, right? And you're a dad.
Yep.
And so. How did you start working with moms? How did you kind of fall into that niche there?
You know what? It was not intentional. I did not deliberately think, okay, well, what do mums need to know about? What can I help mums with? It all started with my Instagram page anyway. It started me just thinking, okay, well, what am I interested in? What am I good at helping my current clients with? Who at the time were like pretty much a mixture of male and female, old
Mm-hmm.
and young. There wasn't really, you couldn't really say, oh, as a personal trainer at the time, I help these kinds of people because there wasn't really one kind of person.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that what I found interesting to talk about, and I guess what I learned to become, better at explaining and talk about on Instagram, just happened to be the things that moms are having
Mm-hmm.
issues with. Here's how to get better sleep. Here's how to deal with stress. Um, here's how I learned how not to think about food as good or bad, how to learn
Mm-hmm.
more moderation in things, and
Yeah.
here's here's why you don't need to be killing yourself with like 5 hit workouts a week.
Yeah.
So it just so happened, I think, that I noticed that I was getting more and more response from like mostly mums over 40, and it because
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, it just so happened that the things I was talking about spoke to them, and then I kept speaking to them, and then my Instagram page has, for whatever reason, blown up in the last 18 months or so.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think a lot of times, the best coaches are the ones that aren't necessarily kind of in the same demographic as you, right? Like obviously I work with
Mm,
dads, but
yep,
you like for a lot of the really great coaches, like um I know Rin Jones,
sure.
yeah, he was on the episode. He was on the show last week, and Rin is an incredible coach.
Okay.
He's
Amazing
not
coach.
he's not a parent, he's not a dad, but he works with moms specifically. But through that process, like he's had to become a more empathetic coach. He's had to really
Yes.
learn his clients in order to really help them. And so, obviously, things transfer over being a mom, being a dad. There are some
Yeah.
similarities, but
Hmm.
what are some things you have found kind of working with moms that you didn't really know before?
Hmm. That's a great question. And I think this is probably something that I never really used to talk about very much, but I've noticed myself over the last, I guess I started taking my Instagram page seriously like 4 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, I wasn't talking really about sleep and stress. But now that's like I talk about that a lot. Like you
Mm-hmm.
go onto my Instagram page, you'll see at least once in the last week I've spoken about stress and I've spoken about sleep and
Yeah.
how much mums do and dads too. And I guess a lot of people who are, over a certain age, that age is obviously going to vary, but over a certain age with responsibilities, with pets, with dependents, with like full-time jobs, sleep and stress, they have such a large impact on everything else that we do. And
Yeah.
I find that, yeah, the mums are very often lacking sleep and experiencing like way more stress than they really should be experiencing,
Yeah.
or that they could maybe learn how to manage more, let's say, because these are like the foundational habits for everything. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all well and good for like, um, a 21-year-old, not that all 21-year-olds are like this, but who like has no real responsibilities yet at that point in their life,
Right.
who can sleep for 8 to 9 hours a day and not really have much stress in their life. They don't really think about stress and sleep being such an
Yeah.
impact because they've never really experienced it. But I guess as my daughter was born and as I dealt with more and more clients, I realized, oh yeah, like everyone's telling me they're not sleeping enough and everyone's telling me that they're feeling like very, very stressed. So,
Yeah.
which is very, very common among mums, especially mums who, either want or need to lose weight, I found.
Yeah.
And it's the lack of stress, a lack of sleep and the stress that is impacting their nutrition choices, their fitness choices, and has either caused the weight gain in the first place, or it's making it really, really hard to now lose the weight that they want to lose.
Yeah, I think sleep is always something. It's never really been the first priority I work with clients on, but it's
Sure.
definitely something like my mindset has definitely shifted. I've noticed this in myself,
Yeah.
just having young kids too, right? I struggle with getting 8 hours. I can't remember the last time I got 8 hours of sleep, but like even just like earlier this week. I went multiple days here where I didn't get much sleep, and I was
Mm.
just really down, not motivated to do anything, didn't want to do my workout, was
Yeah.
eating more than I knew I should have. That night, I intentionally went to bed early. I got 7 hours of sleep the night. The next day, it was like night and day different. It was
Yeah.
just all
Yeah.
I did was sleep. You know,
Absolutely.
I didn't change anything else.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you have like you have a young daughter, and so like
Mm.
having young kids can make that tough, especially on the like my sleep has been affected, but for my wife, like she's the one that is feeding our baby,
Yep.
and so it's like
Yep. Same here.
I can't even I can't even put myself like I don't fully understand, and so when
No,
you're
you can't as a guy. You just can't.
right,
You can be the
and
most
so when
empathetic
you're
guy in the world. You just can't.
exactly, and so when you're working with your clients, like
Mm.
and I don't know what your wife does, but do you ever
Mhm.
have that conversation with her? Just like, how, like, what are you going through? How can I maybe empathize a little bit more with my clients?
Yeah. So we were very, very lucky in that our daughter's poor sleep only lasted for the first 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Then we basically we did sleep training,
Mm-hmm.
and then within a week she was sleeping through the night. So
That's awesome.
it's been like well over a year at this point that we only had like 5 months of disrupted sleep.
Wow.
But during that time, um, yeah, it did become very important for me to like talk to my wife more, ask about how she's feeling, see what I can do. Like I remember like literally there were mornings where I would set my alarm for 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
so that I could grab the baby, bring the baby down here to the office. I would hold her like right here at this desk, and I would type away with one hand and do my work. And then whenever she started to cry and to stir,
Yeah.
put her back to sleep. And then I would do that for 2, 3 hours so that my wife could at least get 2 or 3 hours of just some degree of like consistent sleep without being woken up.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, I mean, it's all fine for me because I can just, at any point during the day, just like lie down over there and take a quick nap. But like when you're a mum with a 4-month-old baby, you're attached to them. Like
Yeah.
unless they're sleeping, you're attached to them, and you can
Yeah.
barely even put them down sometimes because they are just going to start crying, and then you've got to pick them back up. You've got to deal with them. So yeah, it's rough as a mum. Now, most of the mums that I work, in fact, all the mums that I work with, they may well have kids, but none of them are at the stage where they have very young babies.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I wouldn't feel right about helping somebody who's still breastfeeding because if somebody wants to lose weight while breastfeeding, it can impact the milk supply, and I am just not qualified to be able to talk about that kind of thing with anybody.
Yeah.
So usually mums do come to me when the babies are older and they're at the point where they can sleep train, but not all the time. Some kids just don't respond to sleep training, and some kids just like have poor sleep, and that's just an unfortunate fact. Um, and so I guess yeah, that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, but yeah. So basically, yeah. To go back to your question, yeah, it is very important to talk to my wife. It was very important to talk to her about how she was feeling, what she was going through, the way that it can impact mood as well, lack of
Mm.
sleep. So it's not just nutrition choices, it's also your mood and your
Yeah.
motivation to do things. Um, so yeah, it was a very, very important. Looking back, yeah, I did learn from it and have applied it to my coaching, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I really liked what you said there. You mentioned, like new moms there who have, just had a baby and stuff. You don't feel
Yeah.
like you're qualified. Um,
No.
you don't feel like you're qualified to kind of help them there. And uh, I really like that. I really like that you said that because a lot of times, like when clients come to us, when clients come to coaches, they kind of look at us as like a one size or kind of one solution for everything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reality is that like the best coaches kind of know their limits, right? They refer
Yeah.
out and things.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
when a client's coming to you and you have like, I don't know, like you said there, maybe it's a new mom who wants to work with you,
Mm,
but you don't feel qualified.
mm.
What, where do you kind of draw that line? Because a lot of times, like there are things that there's a lot of
Mm.
gray area, right? You feel like you can kind of
Yeah.
give advice. You feel like you know pretty much
Yeah.
what they need to do,
Yeah.
but you may not necessarily like you. It's kind of here's what I'm going to say, but don't listen to it if you don't want to. So where do you kind of where do
Yeah.
you kind of when a client, obviously like you have probably lots of people reaching out to you on social media and stuff, and so how do you kind of social media is kind of a weird thing because
Hmm.
everybody can have authority and stuff. Everybody can have an opinion and stuff. People can take your advice, they
Mm.
don't have to. But when you say something, your clients a lot of times take it as gospel, right? And so
Yeah.
how do you work with these clients to not only just listen, obviously try what you're saying, but understand that just because you're saying it, it may not work for them, right?
Yeah. So I always like to preface when I speak to clients about these kinds of things that I have precisely zero medical qualifications. So anything that I'm going to say should not be taken with any kind of like medical implication.
Yeah.
Um, and for me to say, emphasize that these things help in general,
Hmm.
right? So like to go back to what you were saying about, where do I draw the line? So it's very simple with like, a mum who is still breastfeeding, I
Hmm.
refer to like a dietitian.
Hmm.
Because hey, like I'm sure it is possible to lose weight while breastfeeding because I saw my wife do it without trying or tracking calories or doing anything.
Yeah.
She lost weight
Yeah.
after while she was breastfeeding. Um, but for me to then say, okay, you need approximately this many calories because that's going to help you lose weight and it's going to be enough to affect
Hmm.
to have enough milk. Like, how the hell do I know? This is what I'm trained to do. So
Yeah.
I would for sure say, look, go and talk to a dietitian or talk to your doctor and get them to refer
Hmm.
you to a dietitian because then it might be free or covered under your insurance. Um, so I do like to, if I don't, if I feel like I can't help the person, I am going to refer them to somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, and it's the same if somebody, let's say somebody said to me that they have upcoming knee surgery and they want me to write some workouts for them. I'm like, well, if you have knee surgery coming up, maybe working with an online trainer isn't the best option for you. Maybe you need
Hmm.
like a specific, maybe a physical therapist might be the best person that you could work with. So go onto Google and type in physical therapists and then the name of your city.
Right.
Just, random example there. So because you are right, it can be kind of gray as to who we can work with and who we should not work with because we
Hmm.
just don't have the education or expertise to. Um, so I am like um, very strict about going by the book. Okay, if there is a medical condition present, go and talk to your doctor. Here is what the program would look like. Here's what the kind of nutrition guidance you're going to receive. Talk to your doctor, have them sign off on it because we don't want to take any risks. Yeah, there's the liability thing, of course, but
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep at night if I thought that something that I was doing could potentially negatively impact somebody. It's just I
Yeah.
can't sleep at night. This is so I can have a solid 8 hours of sleep, basically. That's how important sleep is to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I've turned down a lot of potential clients before because I either felt that I wasn't the right coach for them based on their
Yeah.
previous history of, let's say, something as horrible as like an eating disorder or something like
Hmm.
that. Again, I've got no training to help somebody who has that kind of history. Um, and and yeah, like when it comes to drawing the line, I think yeah, I'm probably overcautious if anything, right? I'm probably overcautious. Um, because yeah, it's weird. We have this industry that we're in. It's kind of regulated, but kind of not. Because
Right.
anybody can take a weekend course, get a certification, or even do like an online course
Yeah.
in an hour and get a certification that says they are now a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not saying that that needs to change, but I'm saying that yeah, it does. It makes it pretty complicated, and it's up to the individual to act ethically and to act within their scope. And unfortunately, that way too many people don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I think it's important to kind of have a team, right?
Sure.
Whether you're a coach, have a physical therapist, have a nutritionist, all these people
Yep.
on your team. But for a client too, right? For a client, I think that's
Yes.
really important. I work specifically with dads, and I can guarantee you, at some point, most dads are going to have shoulder pain. Is it because the workouts are super grueling? No, it's because we tend to a lot of time, they think like they're like, how did you know that? How are you gonna like? Typically, I can tell you if you're working at a desk all day, you're driving
Yeah.
in your car, you're not focusing on mobility, you're gonna have
Yeah.
shoulder pain at some point, and it's gonna be in your right arm. And they're like, well, how do you know that? And I was like, well, everybody kind of show, these are just kind of
Yeah.
tendencies. Like most people are right-handed, they're grabbing the mouse on their computer, they're kind of shifting for, and so everybody
Yeah.
kind of has the same things. And I try and give like general advice, like this is how I
Yeah.
helped myself, but like you you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt, talk to a physical
Mm.
therapist and stuff. And so,
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
and
I mean, yeah, like showing people what you do and say, look, this is what worked for me. It might not work for you, but this is
right,
what works for me. And it's very important that this won't necessarily, that you understand that this might not necessarily work for you. It's important that
yeah,
you go and actually see somebody in person who can assess it, who
yeah,
can give you further advice. Because I'm with you. Like if I'm not careful, I get shoulder pain. So I begin all of my workouts with either a face pull or some kind of TYI or
yeah,
some band pull aparts. Like that's the first 5 minutes of my workout,
yeah,
aside from like just general hip and like hamstring mobility.
yeah,
It's basically, all that rear delt stuff, all of that opening the shoulders up,
yeah,
opening everything up nice and loose, maybe doing some windmills on the ground. Because yeah,
yeah.
I'm there like if you were to look at my shoulder mobility, like my right shoulder sucks compared to my left one for those exact reasons that you were talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of times, um, like I said, like you were mentioning, like there's a lot of regulation here, but when we're online, that regulation sometimes goes out the window, which
Yeah.
can be good and bad because you can help people, I think, in a greater way. I think like I feel like a lot of times, I can have a bigger impact on somebody I work with online rather than in person, just because they actually have more access to me. But I have some clients who I want them in person. I want I
Mm,
want I want to be there with them
yeah.
because sometimes it's just movement patterns, right? A lot of
Sure.
like if we're not moving properly and stuff, and so like obviously like you have clients, or the majority of your clients now are online, or all of
Mm,
them, and to me, I'm big on quality over quantity. Like I always say I would rather drop the weight, focus on form. I don't want to see you
mm,
injure yourself. I want
yeah.
you to be able to do this for
Yeah.
12 years, not 12 weeks, right?
For sure.
And so what's one thing you do with your clients to kind of make sure that you're not just improving their aesthetics, but their
Hmm.
overall movement quality, their overall quality of life as well.
Absolutely. So I do take new clients through a very simple like movement screen over
Hmm.
Zoom when we first begin. Um, and I am looking mostly at shoulder mobility. I'm looking at the squat technique. I'm
Hmm.
looking at hip and hamstring mobility, and I'm looking at core stability.
Okay.
That's basically what I'm looking at most of all. Yeah, because a lot of my clients do come to me as beginners. They've never really strengthened trained before. If they have, it's been in a group class, which, as we both know, isn't really strength training, but it's a great way of learning, those basic strength movements.
Yeah.
Um, and depending on what I see, um, there's a good chance that with a lot of clients, I'm going to ask for ask for some video feedback. Like, hey, let me see you performing like just a basic goblet squat with a weight, because as we both know, somebody doing a body weight squat versus somebody holding a weight in front of them, it can fundamentally change how they perform that movement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that they are moving well. I also try my best to just simply choose exercises that are going to be really hard for you to mess up,
Hmm.
like a reverse lunge, a split squat, a
Yeah.
glute bridge, a hip thrust. I do tend to choose these exercises where we can find that good balance between getting the client stronger, improving their range of motion, but which are not going to hurt them. So, if I see somebody with tight shoulders and no core stability, they're not going to get standing overhead press, right?
Right.
At best, they're going to get a seated incline, elbows tucked in kind of overhead press. But even then, I might wait for 4 weeks before we actually do anything overhead.
Yeah.
Um, so I like to see how they move. I like to get their video feedback, and I'm going to choose simple exercises
Mm-hmm.
Because simple exercises can be very effective exercise, and in fact,
Yeah.
they're effective because they are simple,
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna give people we like to think about the planes of motion as trainers, right? We need
Mm-hmm.
like people to go like, up and down the sagittal plane, up and down,
Mm-hmm.
backwards and forwards. We like to see them moving in the frontal plane, side to side,
Mm-hmm.
and also the
Yeah.
transverse plane, rotation, that kind of thing.
Right.
I'm probably not going to ask people to do much rotation in their workouts, but I
Yeah.
am going to program anti-rotational movements to
Mm-hmm.
give them stability when they do rotate. Now, if I have a more advanced client who's done a bunch of strength training before and they can move well, cool. Okay, we're gonna forget that. We're gonna give them some more advanced movements. But most people, sure, some frontal plane, some kind of lateral lunge or lateral squat is going to be very beneficial for them. But
Mm-hmm.
do they really need to be like rotating and spinning? I mean, like for me, if I can't be there to watch their technique, I personally feel that for a lot of people, especially beginners who have maybe 50 pounds to lose, this may be not a great idea. But
Yeah.
to do some anti-rotational movements a pal-off press, something very simple like that, even something um, like a knee-supported row, where the core has to resist the rotation of the dumbbell. Even that can be good enough to provide somebody with a good
Right.
level of rotational stability without the risk of actually doing a bunch of rotations in their workout.
Yeah.
Um, so basically that's my general approach to how I would program for people online. Is that the kind
Yeah.
of similar approach that you take?
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah. So I typically kind of like you said there. You were mentioning somebody who has to lose 50 pounds. You
Mm,
know, their workout program is going to be fairly basic, and I say
yeah,
basic, but I think basic has a very negative connotation. But
it
like,
does.
um,
Yeah,
and like my clients who I've worked with, just for a few months, their workout program looks very similar to my clients who I've worked with for a few years. Right? It's
yeah.
like I
Basic
think
workouts are awesome.
exactly, and I think like I think a lot of times like I started with a new client recently, and they travel a lot, and just they were wanting a new
Mm,
workout like
mm,
every single day. Like they're going to the hotel gym and just
yeah,
something new all the time. And we kind of had to have a conversation. It's like these workouts may be great for like burning calories, like for just
yep,
getting you moving, but
yep.
like that's not our focus. Our focus isn't just to burn as many calories. Our focus is we want to get strong. We want to move better. We
Mm,
want to progress these over time. And so like you can squat, like you said, you mentioned a goblet squat there. We can start with we can start with the body weight squat. We can do a goblet
mm,
squat. We can do I like the landmine. That's a great for a home
yep,
gym setup.
great.
The
Yep.
landmine setup there.
Mm,
Very rarely will I ever have a client do a back squat. Um,
yep.
not
And
not because I don't think they're beneficial. They
yep.
are, but if I'm not there, the slightest, technique, the slightest miscue there could
Hmm.
cause an injury. And I'm not saying like squats when we do them with good form, deadlifts, all these things are great
The
for you. Well,
fantastic exercises when performed properly, absolutely. But there's
exact
a
like
learning curve. There's a learning curve.
there and see that's one thing I didn't know
Mm.
when I started exercising, when I started getting into weightlifting. I did everything on my own.
Oh,
I
me
learned,
too. Like I
yeah.
was an idiot. What do we know,
And
right? We think we know everything when we start out lifting weights, especially as guys.
yeah.
Let's be honest, right? But we don't know
Yeah.
anything about it, really.
Right. Right. You only learn so much. Like, you only learn so much from YouTube, right? I wish,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I wish I could spend, 3-4 weeks. Every client I have online, I wish I could meet with in person for a couple weeks and then
Yeah.
go out, because some of these things, like I had a client who haven't worked with very long,
Hmm.
but they had worked with a trainer. They worked with a trainer
Sure.
for four years. For 4 years.
So you'd
Um,
think technique would be pretty solid with most kinds of movements in that
exactly,
case, yeah.
exactly. And
Okay.
so when I started working with them, um, and I'm not saying they did everything wrong. I'm not criticizing them or
Sure.
anything, but
Hmm.
there were lots of movements there where if we added some weight, it was an injury waiting to happen. It was,
Sure. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, but it was a couple things like one or two pointers. We never went over it
Hmm.
again. They knew exactly what to do. But
Yeah.
for some people, that can be really, if you do a movement the same way for 5 years and you don't have good form with it, you're ingraining that pattern. And so I think,
Absolutely.
starting with these basic things, I think is really important. And I know
Mm,
like you're working with moms, I'm working with dads. Like to me, like it's not like I know they may care about how much they bench press, how much they squat,
mm,
but overall, I was like, 5 years from now, are you really going to care if you back squatted 245 compared to
yeah,
225? You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like a lot of these things, like in the moment, it's cool to tell people like I bench pressed 300 today,
it's
but
very
it's like
cool.
it really it really honestly does it unless you're competing in something like it really
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It really doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And so yeah, I like your approach. I like your approach there. If you have so say you have a client,
Hmm.
um, a mom that you're working with, and her
Yeah.
husband works out regularly, and so
Mm,
he's doing all these different workouts and stuff. And like you said, guys are difficult. Husbands husbands are rough sometimes. And
yeah.
so you have a client who you know I found maybe you found something different, but I found sometimes women seem to be more um, receptive to feedback, um,
100%.
and
100%.
so sometimes what happens is um, maybe the wife bought into it. She bought into your coaching advice. She
Mm,
starts doing some of these things, and all of a sudden the husband is like, "Hey, maybe you should do it this way," or "That's not how we do it," or "Why are you doing that?" And so,
mm.
have you kind of? I'm sure you have, but
I actually haven't. I've been
no.
very lucky. I've not encountered that yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Um, I don't know how I'd approach that. That's a tricky one.
Hmm.
Um, I guess a lot of the mums I work with, they don't work out with their husbands.
Oh,
Um, And I guess maybe if they have the husbands of like they've seen that, I like to program like supersets and trisets, and I like to
yeah,
program, basically try to be efficient with time. And
yeah,
so maybe the husband thinks, oh, she's doing some kind of like cardio thing right now. She's doing like
yeah,
a squat and then a press and then a plank. There must be some
yeah,
kind of cardio thing.
yeah,
So maybe I've kind of like got away with it so far. But I guess it would depend on what the husband was saying. Because like, why are you using a dumbbell and why not a barbell?
yeah,
Right? So I might say, oh, cool. So it will be absolutely great for your wife to eventually use a barbell. Fantastic. That's a fantastic thing to do. I think we maybe need to and assuming that I've got the wife's permission to actually start talking about this kind of thing, I
yeah,
would want to maybe get her core a bit stronger. I mean, right? You got to have a strong core to do a squat, right? Yeah, of course you
yeah,
know that, right? You know that you got to have like a good level of mobility in the hips and some good stability in the hips to do a squat like
hmm,
you can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on. And yeah, eventually, if your wife wants to, we can put her under a barbell. If she doesn't want to, though, there are lots of ways that we can, we can still get an effective lower body workout without a barbell squat.
yeah,
Because you're totally right. Like you don't need barbells. Barbells are actually they don't look it, but they are a very advanced instrument. Like
yeah,
really advanced. If you even to do something like, something that doesn't look that advanced, like a barbell bent over row, you
hmm,
need a lot of core strength, core
hmm,
stability. You need to remember how to keep a neutral spine. You've
yeah,
got to have good hip and hamstring mobility to stay in
yeah,
that position, good stability in those areas. Like a barbell bent over row is a pretty like advanced movement. Like I'm not going to ask a beginner to do a barbell bent over row. That may be like week 12, week 16, maybe even week
yeah,
24 before we even approach barbells.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great approach. The barbell is great. Everybody like
Yeah.
for me like working with dads. Everybody wants a bench, right? Everybody wants to increase their bench and everything. And I love dumbbells. I love the application of dumbbells. I bought
Yeah.
some. They're called Nuobell adjustable dumbbells. They go up to 80
All right.
pounds.
Great.
Best purchase I've ever made. It's awesome.
Honestly,
I
like
love them.
my perfect home gym would be like an adjustable bench that can incline and decline.
Yeah.
And one that's a good height for you to be able to sit back against and do some hip thrusts or something like
Hmm.
that. I'd love to see a TRX or like whatever suspension straps and some adjustable dumbbells.
Yeah.
Like you've got years and years and years of great workouts with those three instruments. Like
Yeah.
you could like those three things would probably be like along with maybe a foam roller maybe that would be like a really really nice home gym and it
Yeah.
doesn't take up a ton of space either.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I have way. way more equipment than I probably need, and I'm going to get more. But
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I want to kind of switch
yep.
topics here, just for a second. At the beginning, you were kind of mentioning kind of how you got into fitness a little bit.
Sure.
You got into it later
Mm,
in life. You were already an adult. You were already working in
mm,
other career fields and stuff. When you first got into this, and so like I said, I've had other people on the show here that have worked with moms and stuff, and I think
mm.
for me working with dads, I have a sense of credibility because I am a dad. But
Yeah.
even when I first started,
Mm,
I felt very um, I know we talk about like imposter syndrome and all that thing. I didn't feel
yeah.
even though I was a dad, I didn't feel qualified, right? And so
Mm,
I felt like why would people listen to me, and like obviously you've been very successful in working with moms here. And so when you first started, or maybe even now
mm.
too, um, how did you kind of get that buy-in from the moms you were working with?
So right now it's fine because I've got the client testimonials and
Hmm.
I've got the evidence here. Here's all these people that I've helped.
Yeah.
Um, and I think honestly what helped me just to get clients and for me to, build the trust, I honestly think it was my Instagram page.
Mm,
Because what I try to do on my Instagram page is I try to tell people exactly what to do to get the results that they want.
mm,
In fact, the only thing that I don't give on Instagram because I cannot is accountability for each individual.
yeah.
Like that's, I mean, obviously, yeah, when a client comes to work with me, we wouldn't just, apply the formulas that I put on Instagram and just put together some like random workout for them.
Right.
They get a customized program that's built for their movement. They get, specific nutrition guidance around them and their specific situations and requirements. But fundamentally, if somebody didn't want to pay me and they didn't need accountability, they could probably spend a couple of hours looking at my free content and put together a plan and just do
Yeah.
it themselves. And I honestly think that enough people took the advice I'm giving out, applied it to their situations, and saw some kind of progress before stalling and then reaching out to me for further help. I think
Yeah.
that was it. I think if there are any coaches listening to this, like this is how you get clients. You basically tell people exactly what to do for free.
Yeah.
And then when they see success doing it, some of them are going to reach out to you for further help. And I think so, yeah, that's what I think has really helped me. Um, you know, letting people try out what my information is for free. And, I'm sure you get the same thing, people reaching out to you say, hey, like, thanks to your free advice, I've dropped 10 pounds or 20 pounds, or I'm working up consistently now, thanks to what you've been explaining to me online. And that's awesome. That's a really great feeling.
Yeah.
But you mentioned imposter syndrome. Yeah, I get that every day. Like, every time I
Yeah.
open up Instagram, I'm like, why the hell are like this many people following me? I feel like I know I'm like there are so many coaches I know personally who are just like so much better than me at coaching.
Yeah.
Like so many. I don't feel like I'm a bad coach, but I'm not a great coach. I feel very average to be frank compared with the people that I speak to.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why am I the one who's got this audience right now? And why not those other people? And yeah, I feel that often, like a lot. Like this is like if it's not daily, it's certainly at least once or twice. So I'm like, Jesus,
Yeah.
who the hell am I? Why do I have this right now? This is kind of stupid. I should have a real job, not mucking around on Instagram all day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you said, yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Aaron Horschig, Dr. Aaron Horschig, Squat University.
Okay,
Um, he's got well over like 1 million followers on Instagram now,
wow,
and I've actually met him a couple times. He lived in Kansas City for a while. He lives in
cool.
St. Louis now, but he wrote a book called the Squat Bible, and he has another one called Rebuilding Milo. But he said the exact same thing. He was like, if someone went on my website or on my YouTube, they can literally find everything for free. It's all there. Like everything you need to do is like the book is literally just to put it all together for you. And
Yeah.
he's like, you never have to pay me. And he's like that, he's like, he gets
Yeah.
people all the time that reach out to him like, hey, thanks to this, I got it. And like that's exactly what you're doing. Like on your Instagram, like you're
Yeah.
sharing tips, you're sharing tips
And you
every
too,
single
Anthony.
day, right?
You too.
That's the
We're
plan.
all
That's
we're
the
all
goal.
doing it.
That's
Yeah.
the goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like but when you have clients, so like you have moms reaching out to you, right? You have moms reaching out to you who are like, this is great. Like, I've had success. I've lost 20 pounds just doing what you
Mm.
said.
Yeah.
At what point? So I believe like at some point everybody should have a coach in some area of their life. You can learn so
Oh,
much. You can learn so like
yeah.
it doesn't like
Yeah.
not does everybody need to hire a weight loss coach, a fitness coach? And probably not, right?
No.
Like but for somebody who some people like to, right? Some people just like to, but you have clients who have kind of gotten to a point. What are your kind of expectations with like clients? So like a lot of the stuff is just like for most people to lose, the first 10, 20 pounds, you kind of do the same
Yeah.
things, similar, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's kind of a similar approach, but you
Yeah.
have lifestyle factors, you have
Mm.
environment, you have all these
Yeah.
other things that play into it. And so if
Mm.
somebody has gotten results initially,
Mm-hmm.
just through following your information,
Mm.
when they start working with you, how do
Yeah.
you kind of tailor it to make sure that, you know, they're not only going to get these results, but they're going to be able to maintain them after they stop working with you?
That's a great question. Um, so I like to pretty often ask my clients if you had to do what you're doing right now for another year, could you? And I want them to be able to say, oh yeah, absolutely. That's how I know we're on the right track.
Yeah.
And I talk to my clients how I say, look, and I tell this to them up front, like we are going to put the habits in place or continue to put the habits in place that you have already been working on that you need to maintain for the rest of your life
Uh-huh.
to not just lose the weight, not just keep it off, but to basically have as long and as independent a life as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And there isn't really much there isn't really like a lot of like specific things that we know definitely work. We know that, walking more is a great idea. Doing
Yeah.
some kind of strength training a couple of days a week is a great idea. When it comes to nutrition, like no one way of eating has really been shown to be superior to any other. It's
Right.
very, very individual. The best we can say is make sure that at least 80% of what you're eating is from like minimally processed, like healthy food,
Right.
and the rest from wherever you really want it to come from. We know we need people to manage their stress. We know we need them to get better sleep, to drink water, to like get up and move around on a regular basis, to be social, to have some kind of community as well. So
Uh-huh.
this is like, it sounds like very basic stuff, but when you look at like what percentage of the people are being 80/20 about nutrition and are getting even 2 workouts a week and are doing more than 7,000 steps a day, like, and who are managing stress and sleeping well, like what percentage of people are doing all of those things? It's like
Yeah.
it's not very many at all. But these are the things that we need to maintain like a healthy weight and to be healthy and to be independent for as long as we possibly can. So I kind of like I'm a weight loss coach, but I'm kind of like I'm secretly like a kind of a health coach as well,
Yeah.
right? So I want people to form these habits. I want them to feel good about the habits that they're forming. And anybody listening to this about what I've just said, it shouldn't really sound that unrealistic. Like sleeping more, managing stress, and being
Yeah.
80/20 and working out twice a week. It's not a huge ask, but I'm kind of like trying to like really emphasize to people, look, like there's this way over here that's pushed on social media most of the time about what working out looks like. It's like 5 hit workouts a week. It's lifting really, really heavy weights a couple of times a week. It's being super, super ripped. It's just being extreme, and like that's
Uh-huh.
just marketing. That's all that is. It's just
Yeah.
basically marketing. That's not a sustainable lifestyle for most people. So I also tell my clients that these habits should start off feeling like they're pretty tough. Okay, I let them know, hey, it's going to be hard. We're not going to try to change everything at once, but you are going to have to make effort. And I like to use the analogy of like when I started learning how to floss my teeth regularly, which I did
Yeah.
embarrassingly late. So it took me weeks and weeks and weeks to do it consistently. I kept forgetting. I would do it for a couple of days, and then I'd forget again. Then I'd maybe like travel somewhere and like not have any floss, and then have to keep restarting. But I kept making the effort, and now I'm at the point where if I don't floss, it's weird. Like it feels like something's missing, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
that's how I also feel about if I don't go and get my steps on a particular day, if I don't work out in a particular week,
Right.
if I don't eat any fruit or vegetables on a particular day. Like the end of that day, I'm like, I feel really off. This is like I'm off balanced right now. So
Yeah.
that's how it's not like a big effort for me, and like nor should it be. So I tell my clients, look, the more that you do these things, the easier they should become over time. And that's how you know it's a sustainable habit because it starts off hard and ends up easier. Whereas I personally have found that the less sustainable habits start off easy, but then get harder as you go along. Like day one of keto is really easy. You just throw the bread out and throw the rice out. You just have the meat and you have the vegetables.
Yeah, yeah.
It's easy on day one. But then
Yeah.
you get to day 51 and you're craving carbs and you want to have a beer with your friends and you just want to have some pizza. Like it gets really, really hard over time and
Yeah.
it doesn't get any easier.
Yep.
So that's what I tell my clients. I tell them, look, I do expect you to like to work hard
Hmm.
to practice making the hard choice,
Yeah.
right? Um, and knowing as well that it will get easier with time. And obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, we customize things for each client. I really do ask about, okay, what do your current activity levels like? How consistent are you being with them? Okay, this is approximately, this is a good calorie range for you day to day. You want to go up to maintenance once a week. Here's a higher calorie range. How many workouts can you realistically commit to right now? If it's only one per week at the moment, cool, then it's just one. And we figure out how to implement a second at some point. If you can
Yeah.
only get 4,000 steps right now, a day right now, cool. That's what we aim for. And let's figure out how to get you from up to 5 and up to 6 and up
Yeah.
to 7. So I do let them know we basically go into, we're going to figure out where you are right now and we're
Hmm.
going to build on it from there.
Awesome. Yeah.
I hope I
I
answered the
think.
question.
Yeah. No. I think that ties in perfectly. Yeah. One of the big thing I always talk about here on the podcast and my Facebook group and stuff is creating your fit life. Right. For
Mm,
some people, that's 3 workouts a week. To
yeah.
some people, that's 2 workouts a week. Some people, that's
Hmm.
hitting 10,000 steps a day. And so, like you said, that I asked that exact same question to my clients. Can you do you feel like you can stick with this for a year? And
Yeah.
if they say no, then we need to change something.
Yeah.
And I think there's value. I think there's value in doing a program. Like there's times in my life too where I'll add an extra workout or two each week because I
Yeah.
have the time, right? And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
so I think there's times for that when you kind of sprint a little. Same way with business, with work. There's going to be
Yeah.
times where you're putting more than your 8 hours in each day. You're working on a project. You're getting something done, but we don't want to do that every day, right? Because
No.
after that
No.
week, after that 2 week, after those 3 weeks where you are putting in that extra time, you get exhausted, and then you don't want to do
Precisely.
anything, right? So
Yeah. And this, I mean, a lot of people they um, like to push a little bit too much when they first start.
mhm.
That I think I'm going to go from 0 to 4 workouts. I'm going to go from 1,000 steps to 10,000 steps a day every day.
Right,
And yeah, it's at that point where yeah, like we've got to be like self-aware. We've got to be
yeah,
realistic about the plan. But if you want to go from let's say 3 to 4 workouts per week for a period of time, you want to go from 7 to 10,000 steps per day for a certain period of time. Okay, cool. Now we've got something to talk about. And a few of my clients are teachers, which means they've got a long break coming up in about a
yeah,
month
yeah,
or so. So for them, a lot of them are talking about, hey, I want to get 4 workouts a week during that time. I want to get my 10,000 steps instead of the 7,000 I'm aiming for right now, and that's great. Yeah, and I'm all for like
yeah,
certain periods of time pushing, and I like I followed powerlifting programs in the past because it
mhm,
gave me like a 16-week focus on
yeah,
improving like certain elements of my strength and of my
yep,
fitness. I've
yep,
done other more cardio-based challenges
yep,
before, like Dan John's 10,000 kettlebell swing challenge. Um, I mean, I followed a 16-week Eric Cressy program that was awesome. That I think it was either a 4 or 5 week 10,000 kettlebell swing program. I like the idea of like committing to more intense kinds of workouts for a certain period of time. I think you've got a great point there.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm kind of doing either two full body or three workouts per week. Um, Enough to like maintain and slowly build strength.
Hmm.
Um, and then going all in during the times where I know it's going to be appropriate to go all in. The first year of my daughter's life, that was not a time to be going all in on exercise. It
Right.
just absolutely
Right.
would not have been a good idea. But now she's getting a bit older. Um, it's going to be, yeah, I'm thinking like ahead to the next few months. I think, okay, well, August is probably going to be a pretty quiet month for me, probably between mid-July to August. It's our, like, a slower season for coaches.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take advantage of the extra time and, maybe spend a little bit more time doing some like more intense workouts more
Yeah.
frequently. It makes complete
Yeah.
sense. And I know
Yeah.
that my daughter sleeps well, so I'm not going to have to worry about not getting enough sleep. I'm not recovering properly. Um, so yeah, I think that's a great point.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Daniel, I really appreciated, our talk on here. I know you work with moms, I work with dads, but I think there's a lot of value in learning about kind of what your wife does as well, right? And so I know my
Hmm.
wife likes a bunch of different workouts than
Sure.
I do, right? We don't enjoy the same things, and that's completely okay. And so
Yeah.
just to leave us with kind of one last piece of advice here
Hmm.
for husbands who maybe have more experience
Yeah.
with fitness and exercise, and their wife is trying to get started. What's one piece of advice for them to kind of encourage their wife as they're getting started in their fitness?
To encourage your wives to lift weights and get involved in strength training.
So if they're looking to hire a coach or something, and
Okay.
I know a lot of times we kind of think like, oh, like I like strength training, they need a strength training, or we need to do the same workout. So what's a piece of advice you have for dads in regards to that?
Hmm. How can they encourage their wives to take part? Yeah. Um, I mean, if you have kids, I mean, this is a thing that I've seen Andrew Coates say on Instagram.
Hmm.
Like, if you have kids, especially if you have a daughter, you want them to see both their parents' strength training.
Right.
You want to encourage your kids to develop healthy habits. And we all know now that strength training is a very healthy habit.
Yeah.
It's going to make you essentially, if you're lucky, live a longer independent life. I don't think we can say it's going to extend your lifespan, but I think we can say it gives you a better chance to be independent for as long as you possibly can.
Right.
And even if we think about earlier than that, it's going to make you leaner. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you harder to kill. And
Mm.
I think we want those. We want to encourage our kids. I mean, we have like it seems like and like an infinite number of coaches online, and yet we in the US and Canada and England, we are still experiencing increasing rates of people like who are overweight or obese. It's not going down, it's going up. There have been like
Right.
there's never been access to more resources for this kind of thing. It's never been easier to join a gym. But still the rates of obesity and being overweight are still increasing.
Right.
So and like we all know the risks of that come with with obesity, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, we want to teach our kids good habits.
Yeah.
Like especially if they're dads with daughters, you want your daughter to be well, there's nothing wrong with being feminine, but also tough at the same time, right?
Right.
You don't want your daughter to be a walker. You want her to be like a strong, independent woman and teenager as she grows up. And I think being physically active is very, very important. Um, and I think, just telling them that it's a good idea to do that kind of thing is like one thing. It's not very effective, but
Yeah.
showing them what you do and letting them see
Yeah.
what you do. Like if you have a home gym and you have a wife and you have a daughter and or a son, let your kids see your wife strength train.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think it's such a great lesson, such a great lesson to pass on to your kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, we do everything for our kids, right?
Right. Right.
Like yeah, it's why we work 12-hour days. It's why we suffer when we wake up in the middle of the
Yep.
night because we want the best for our kids. And I think this
Absolutely.
is just it's going to be such a great lesson to pass on to your kids to have them form memories of both their parents being active, being healthy when they were younger, and still lifting weights and being healthy in 20 or 30 years' time when you have grandkids, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, where can people find you on social media?
I'm mostly active on
On
Instagram.
Instagram?
I've tried TikTok before, and it's just a terrible place to be, so I haven't done TikTok. The comments just are brutal. So yeah, I'm on Instagram, Rosentrain,
Rosentrain.
Rosentrain. My website's rosentrain.com.
Awesome.
Um, if anybody would like a free beginner's guide to strength training, just go to rosentrain.com/strength and you can
Awesome.
sign up for my newsletter and you'll get a PDF of the beginner's guide to strength training. Just so anybody who's like, who's listened to this and is maybe thinking, okay, well, maybe I should start strength training.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
got a little beginner's guide on there. All you have to do to get it is sign up for my newsletter.
Awesome. Awesome, man. Awesome. I'll make sure I'll get those links. I'll get those links and I'll put them in the show notes. That way everybody can sign up for that guide. Get on your email list there, and then also follow you on Instagram there. Not TikTok, not TikTok,
No,
but
no. I mean, I have an account there. I've not posted it in a while. Yeah,
yeah.
maybe one day.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on here. It was really great talking to you, and actually to finally get to meet you too. So,
Well,
thanks
thank
for
you for the
coming
invitation,
on.
Anthony. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it. Thank you.
absolutely, man. We'll definitely have to have you on again sometime.
That'd be awesome.
Awesome, man. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.